Welcome to Real Money, Real Experts, a podcast where leading financial counseling and coaching experts share their stories, their challenges, and their advice for helping people manage money in the real world. I'm your host, Rachel DeLeon, Executive Director of the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education, or AFCPE.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Mary Bell Carlson, an accredited financial counselor, or AFC, and the president of Financial Behavior Keynote Group. Every episode, we're taking a deep dive in the topics that personal finance professionals care about, helping clients, building community, and your professional growth.
The opinions of our podcast guests are their own, which means that their stories, views, or lived experiences may differ from yours or mine. However, the one thing you will always find on this show is a common thread. Our guests are passionate about helping people with their money to improve their lives, and they believe in upholding high standards for the clients and the communities that they serve. We encourage you to tune in to Real Money, Real Experts with open curiosity. Why? Because it's oftentimes in the conversations where viewpoints or stories differ from our own that we learn the most.
Cara Macksoud is the CEO of Money Habitudes. After a 15-year career as a trader on Wall Street and a stint as a CFO for an NYC nonprofit, Cara transitioned into the behavioral finance space. She completed the Financial Therapy Graduate Certificate at Kansas State University and holds a BS in Finance from NYU Stern School of Business. She is a certified financial behavior specialist and a member of the Financial Therapy Association, where she serves on the board as the chair of student engagement. Additionally, she is a member of AFCPE and an AFC candidate. Thank you so much for joining us today, Cara.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Cara, we're super excited to have you on the show. I know personally one of my favorite topics is the psychology of money. I think it's fascinating how the attitudes and beliefs and the habits that we have make up our money behaviors. So we're really excited to dive in there. But before we get started, I'm curious, listening to your bio, how you came to become the CEO of an organization that helps us focus on these types of conversations.
Absolutely. And I always say this is like a long, windy road. And I don't know that I could have predicted what was happening when I went to the trading floor, back in the late 90s. But it was almost like on the job training, right? So I don't know if there's a more gluttonous environment than Wall Street, right? And so, think of a picture, Gordon Gekko and, Wolf of Wall Street type movies, Trading Places, Eddie Murphy. They do good jobs at depicting what really is going on. And so without even realizing, I watched people make ridiculous amounts of money and cross over to a place of, as I like to call it, the Aladdin, genie in the lamp, right? Where you become all powerful to the place where you imprison yourself. And for me, it was a true metaphor, right? Like I watched guys make more money. And I say guys, I mean, it was Wall Street in the 90s. It was pretty much all men. But I'd watch them make money more than they could ever spend. I mean, there weren't enough golf memberships and yachts that you could buy. And they would cross over into greed and then literally get themselves imprisoned. And I thought, how fascinating is this? Like, if a lot of us are out there striving to get to a place where we can, afford our wants, what makes someone cross that line where even if you want all the things, you're in a cell? Like you can't even access what you've bought, right? And so I think of Jafar and, I have 5 kids, so I refer everything back to a Disney movie. But I go to this place where I'm thinking, wow, like that's exactly what happens in that movie, right? He wants to be all powerful that he puts himself in the lamp. Explain that, right? Like it's such a bizarre moment, but that's what humans do. And so having that career, and then I had 5 kids, as I mentioned, and Wall Street gives you a quick, swift kick to the butt and tells you, get lost. And so I still wanted to, obviously work. So I went into this nonprofit work because that offered flexibility. And at that job, I was tasked with banking these unbanked kids. It was 862 of New York City's it was a summer youth program to start. And that became super fascinating to me as well, because they had other behaviors and attitudes, but the human connection that they wanted and how they were utilizing money to make themselves, so-and-so in their community and connection. I thought, wow, I've seen this before. Right. And so I thought, how fascinating is this? So I've got these guys, and literally I worked down the block from the New York Stock Exchange, from where my first job was, right? So here I am, literally a couple of 100 yards from one job to the next, with people who are the wealthiest of individuals in New York City, and in that same city, the lowest of income individuals. And the beliefs, the behaviors, the attitudes, what people want was exactly the same. And I was like, oh gosh, there's something going on here that's much deeper. Fast forward, COVID happens. We leave New York, move to Florida. I finally wind up with some time right after, sending kids back to school after COVID. And I went back for the, degree at K-State, more as a passion project. Got introduced to AFCPE. I always say I attribute 90% of this all to you all, because I, as a student, got invited to AFCPE. You asked us to do some volunteer stuff. It was a virtual session. I introduced Sybil, the founder of Money Habitudes, at the conference, and wound up having a conversation with her after the session. And that was really, just I had heard about the product during school, but that kickstarted my relationship with Money Habitudes, and the rest is kind of history.
That's awesome. In fact, finish the history. I want to know. So you had a conversation with Sybil, and then what happened?
So she had hosted a webinar for you all at that session. And then there was a lot of Q&A that came in. And I said to her at the end of it, as her, discussant at the end, I was like, hey, we didn't get to all the Q&A. I'll copy paste them. Give me your email. I'll send them over to you. And then she was like, do you mind if we meet in person? Sybil is a couple of years, I said quite a few years older than me. And so we talked about just different technology of getting dashboards out and how could we disseminate this information. And it became clear that technology wasn't her driver. And I could see that the tool, was moving to that point. And so after quite a few conversations, about a year of back and forth, I became the succession plan of I was like, well, if I take this thing over, and with my finance background, I do have a bit of technology understanding. I was like, I think I can get the right people on board and help this tool become, something that everybody could use and really get it disseminated. I know that a lot of our competitors in this space really go after that wealth management community. And I'm not for or against. I just saw Money Habitudes, and what attracted me to it, to be honest with you, from the very get-go, was I had quickly realized I had met a wealth manager who was using the tool. And then Sybil had, introduced me to a bunch of nonprofits that were using the tool. And obviously all the AFCs who were amongst the military and credit unions. And I thought, how fascinating. I spent 20 some odd years in financial services. And I will tell you, financial products are built for particular people, right? So SNAP benefits aren't for everyone. They're for a particular income level. Balloon payment mortgages are not for everyone. They're for a certain level of people. So I thought, how great that there's a financial product that is out there, that it's being used across the board. It's like a neutral product. It's completely inclusive. Everybody can answer a statement and come up with, do I feel this way about my money or do I not? And that's really, I think, what attracted me to it.
It is striking. It kind of takes you back full circle to, when you worked from Wall Street to the underserved community. And it still boggles my mind how in a city there can be such a dichotomy of income within, a city block. But I think just the fact that at the core, that emotion, that psychology, those wants and needs, that they're kind of equalizers. And I think we all have to navigate those things in relation to money. We're all just working. What is the saying? We're not all in the same boat. So together, our boats look very different.
Yeah. And what I find, as you say that, Rachel, what I find super fascinating is when you talk to people, they legitimately think they're different, right? Like when you talk to a wealthy person versus, someone who might be struggling or even someone who's middle class, they will all tell you they're all so different. But when you peel back the onion, what is it that we all really want? We want to be safe. We want to feel connection. We want to feel meaningful, right? Like the how all money is more ammunition in your bow and arrow, right? And so I say to people, what I don't think we give enough credit for in the big picture is if you're sitting there, let's call you low income or middle income, and you have three, arrows in your bow, and I'm high income or I'm a wealthy individual and I have 10 arrows, and we both need to make one shot. If you hit your one shot, you had a 1 in 3 chance. If I make my shot, I had a 1 in 10 chance. Honestly, those are not equal. So if you and I both make the shot, you actually scored higher, right? And we don't celebrate that enough, that people that are getting it right with less are actually solving a better equation because they're doing it more efficiently.
That actually leads me into my next question. What are some of the common money messages, or in this case, habitudes, that you've seen in different communities, and how do these messages shape financial behavior?
Okay, so I'm gonna be a little cheeky, but the biggest one and again, because we get to see the data a bit at Money Habitudes, and I run obviously a lot of sessions, but financial professionals, for the most part, assessments look very similar. So I really started pushing financial bias training. And that was really to be able to say to a bunch of financial professionals, whether they're educators, counselors, coaches, advisors, hey, confirmation bias is a thing. If we all get in a room together and we go, oh, yeah, that looks great. You wrote the curriculum. Yep, the content looks awesome. That's because we all think the same. There's a reason why we chose this industry to be in. We don't get overwhelmed maybe by bank statements or fine print or jargon. But guess what? The people that are walking in our office, no matter what the zeros in their accounts have, they're probably not like us. So we have to be aware that, our habitudes, also get us to see things with that lens on. And so the shrug of a shoulder, your eyeball looking down, the way you'll shift in your seat, those nonverbal messages when we're working with a client can really give someone an approval or disapproval feeling. And so that's the biggest, one that I always pick on as the one that because, right, we're a B2B company. So I don't get to see clients myself often, right? I'm only working with other financial, practitioners and whatnot. But what I do get we do a lot of work with like social work groups, and that's been really fascinating because people that go into that line of work, oftentimes, at least the people I've spoken to, have a story, right? There's some connection, whether it's addiction or something that they grew up with, and that's why they're in that line of work. And they obviously show up different on their assessment. But because they're in some sort of, maybe it's more of a financial coaching, or, if they're helping someone in a social counseling kind of situation, money always comes into play because money touches every part of our life. And when they get it right, I get to see that their habitudes actually get to support them where, how do I put this? I don't want to say the freedom from the like shackles, but because they're showing up with a whole different set of habitudes, they almost have to work for their planning and their security a bit different. And so it gets to be utilized differently, which is actually super valuable to them, and their relatability to clients is their story is just different, right? And so that's been a super fascinating, eye-opening experience. I know that didn't answer your question, I realize specifically, but I guess those are the fun ones that I've gotten to see through all of this work.
Absolutely. No. And I think that you've taken it to even the next level. Sybil started the cards, and those cards grew into workbooks and guides and other things. And I'm looking on your shopping money habitudes right now, and you've taken it to an online version as well as trained the trainer and offered multiple workshops. So help our listeners understand, many of them are in a B2B type role. Help them understand what offerings you now have to help them in their own jobs and callings?
Absolutely. So, Train the Trainer really got started because what we were hearing was, Sybil had written some great professional guides and had written, some worksheets and whatnot. But obviously, without a practicing in an environment, right? And you all know this because you train AFCs all the time, right? That's why those member, calls and those group meetings are so valuable because we together get to come together and say, hey, is this working? Do you see this? Is this, when I see this, am I thinking about it correctly? And so there wasn't a whole lot of that environment. And so something like, let's say, the habitude of planning, for instance, financial planners love the word because it's in planning, right? And so there was almost this rightness that, and I say that with air quotes around it, right? Like if people got high in planning, they were like, oh, I got 100 on the money habitudes assessment, right? Or they used to call it the money habitudes test. And it was like, wait a second, we need to define planning. Are you a short-term planner? Are you a long-term planner? Some of the best laid plans are really not logical, right? But it's your plan. So what Money Habitudes is measuring is how dominant you are on the spectrum of the planning habitude. And so it doesn't necessarily mean financial planning. It just means the more dominant you are, the more stuck you are in seeing the world through that lens. Right. And so I always think of it like a main movie character who, without the supporting characters, the main character can't do anything, but that main character is the driver. So that's kind of why we opened up training, so we could get people to really see what the habitudes, the plethora of all the things that should come out, and why the tool itself doesn't do the work for you. The practitioner, the counselor, the coach really needs to utilize the tool to then help the client have that moment of self-assessment, self-awareness. I mean, obviously, just reading some of the statements can be an eye-opener. But if you really want to do that deep-rooted work, which, let's be honest, since COVID, and then obviously since CFP, board put it, financial psychology on the core competencies, there's been such a huge push now, right, for this deeper understanding of money behaviors. And so we wanted to train the practitioners to really understand how to use the tool in multiple different ways so they could get the information that they're looking for the client. The online version, obviously, so Sybil had started that, and then it needed just obviously an organizations wanted to be able to use it for dissemination. So we built a whole technology platform. We built an entire training platform with videos and CEU content. We just listened to the community. The beauty of what she built was there was a community, people to ask, people to refer to, people to say, I mean, she was pretty much a one-man band. And let's be honest, for a 20-year-old product that she didn't have a huge team behind her, she did a great job. And there wasn't a ton of marketing, right? It was very organic. So we knew that there was interest. We knew that there was, depths for this. We just had to get everybody in the room and say, what is it that we're building for? Who is it that we're building for? How do I make your job? And again, I have a soft spot for nonprofits because I've done the work, right? I see what those people in those offices are, how many people they're trying to serve. So how do I build products and tools that make your job more efficient? You can help more people because we can reserve some of your energy because this can help you get to what you need to faster, right? And so that was really my intention with a lot of what I built.
I feel like Money Habitudes is really, or even the idea around the psychology of money is really at the core of what we do, and why we always say personal finance is not one size fits all, because we're working with human beings who have different approaches, different habits, to the way they approach money or anything in life, really. And, could you talk a little bit, one of the things I always find fascinating is people can be raised in the same family, but they can have completely different, for lack of a better word, habitudes, and I'm just curious how you see with this product, the family system, the financial system, how they're working together and some of the struggles.
Rachel, you said something really great there first, right? You said personal finance is not one size fits all. I always say to people, personal finance is anything but personal. Right? Like it has no, there's, so something like running late, right, increases your budget because you have late payments, you missed the bus, you got to take a taxi. On what budget have you ever seen a line that says, "Do you run late?" or "Are you
Yeah.
early?" Right? Or,
Yes.
or so you want to move to the family. Are you the first child, the middle child, or the last child? Right? Because we know that, certain positioning in a family has you receiving information differently. Right. And so, again, back to money messaging, which is a lot of times it can be a lot of nonverbal. And, not to quote Brene Brown, but what does she always say, right? If somebody doesn't tell you the whole story, you create your own story. So create a scenario. Mom and dad are sitting at the dinner table. Kid number two, I have 5 kids. So let's go with kid number 2 comes over to the table and says, "Tomorrow at school, there's a book fair. Can I have some money?" And this is actually a true story. And I said, "There's absolutely no money. We're not buying any books." Da da da. Da. That kid, no harm, no foul. He walks away. Kid number 4 really wanted something at the book fair, right? But now already heard me tell kid number 2, and she goes to kid number 5 and says, "Well, mom told, so and so we're not getting money for the book fair." And kid number 5 says, "Well, we didn't get money for the book fair last time, and the kid in my class told me that we don't get money because mom has 5 kids and we don't have any money, or we don't have enough money." Right? So take what just happened, right? Like, in theory, I didn't say whether we had enough or we didn't. I just said no to the money, which I should have said, "We're not spending money on that," or "We're going to, we're choosing to do XYZ with our money," right? You need more of a conversation, because when there's no conversation, these interpretations then get created. Right. And that's what then makes different siblings have different. And so, to end that story, I always say I should write a book about this. My 5 kids who didn't have money at the book fair, and we had this, I mean, I have a great story about how it all played out. And 2 kids, parents in those kids' classes gave my kids money and then said to me at pickup, "We saw so and so didn't have money and we gave them money. You can pay us back later." And I was like, "How dare you, right? Overstep." But again, we were living in New York City. What kid didn't have money in the middle of Manhattan for a book fair? Right? It was nobody could understand that I was actually trying to teach my kids the value of a dollar. Right? That's not the environment. So you want to talk about a community, right? That community was indulgent. So one of my kids came out of the book fair and said, you can walk around the book fair and get a bunch of things and give it to the register and tell them mom's coming back later to pay for it. So one of my kids says to me, this is what she did because she didn't want her friends to think she didn't have any money. My other kid was like, "I don't care. I'm going to go to the library if I need a book." Right. And so it's, again, personal. Like, if you want to feel status or you want to feel like you're part of the group, you don't want people to think you don't have or you're a less than. So you're going to create these other, right? That, I mean, in some ways, those kids figured out a way to solve for their own what they needed to fill their void. But it's all around the have or the have not of the money.
Well, and I love that example because it's so true that this starts so early in life, right? Like so young. It's going on this bookstore example. My kids go to a Title I school, and about half the kids in their class don't have money for books. And so, but the way in which we work to be able to not have the haves and the have-nots was we had activities for the kids who didn't have money for books for whatever reason, right? Intentional or not, to be able to say, you still have something fun to do. Let's do this instead, right? And giving them that option and that outlook and being intentional. I think that's the thing I love about your story is the intentionality of your parenting in it. It's not that you didn't have it or did. That's irrelevant. The fact is you were trying to be intentional, and sometimes even good meaning neighbors, friends, teachers, etc., can overstep those bounds. So I love the fact that you're trying to teach that to others in multiple settings, right? Not only kids, but even as adults, and pulling away from that entitlement mentality.
I mean, and it's hard, right? Because you can only control the narrative on so many different, I mean, we have so many touch points, right? And so here I am, and I was pretty good about always having the conversation with my kids about, why or why not. And then there's all these other touch points. And look, they come from within the family, they come from within the community, they come within the for friend group, right? Other people have their opinion of how they think you should spend your money, right? And so that becomes even more difficult because, and again, I appreciate the new generation that's come up with this loud budgeting term. As much as I don't always love social media, I'm like, I think those kids came up with that term so they could avoid being called cheap. Right? Like if I say I'm not like spending money on that or whatever, and they're like, oh, but you have it, right? You should spend it. And I'm like, well, I'm loud budgeting. Now I've called out what I'm doing, right? I reframed it. So now, if you're really my friend, you're going to support me on my loud budgeting for my Cancun vacation, right? Loud budgeting doesn't mean that the thing we're saving for makes any more sense than what you were asking me to spend money on, right? I want to make that clear. Like, I think people think because I'm a finance person, I'm always going to tell you to like invest or save and that's actually not my narrative at all. I actually am a big believer in joy. Like, figure out how to maximize the utilization of every dollar. And if the dollar brings you joy, by all means, right? Like, but if you've got dollars that you're spending and you can't figure out how to find any joy or a reprieve, or you bought yourself time, then those are not good dollars.
No, I love the intentionality part. And let's talk about money. I mean, that's the other message I'm hearing from you, Cara, is you've got to have conversations. Whether it's yes, we can spend, no, we can't spend, or whatever it is in between, the bigger point is talking about money. And the ironic part is, as financial service professionals ourselves, I know I have taught a similar course for over a decade now, and I have them write down their spending, track their spending for a month, and then write a paper on it. And I have occasionally a student who will say, I don't talk about my money. I will not do this. I will not share that information with you. And I find that, to be real frank, I don't care what people spend. I don't even look hardly at the numbers. But the real matter of the fact is, I want you to look at the numbers and for you to have a conversation with your significant other about this whole process that's taking point. So that's my question to you is, how do we sometimes as financial service professionals who have our own money history, beliefs, ill-fated book club stories ourselves, how do we overcome those? Because we have our own biases as humans.
Right. And that's exactly, Mary, what I was saying before about this financial bias training that I've been doing, because financial, professionals do have what they call the right way. Right. And I'm like, wait, there's 10 of us in the room. We can't all be right. Right. Like, so it's interesting, for me, because I think it could start small. Like, I love, because I get this because of the 5 kids, I get the question all the time. How do you when you talk to teens, how do you tell them, what's the first thing you tell them to do with their money? Or how do you tell them to manage their money? And I'm like, actually, what I tell them is to figure out how to get some of that money, if it's on Venmo, if it's in the checking account, get it in cash. Somehow or another, get it in cash and get it in the lowest nominal bills you can get it in. Singles, fives, tens. Don't get it in hundreds. And I want you to sit at a table with whatever dollar amount you get. And I want you to talk to it. I want you to have a conversation with it. I want you to make intentions. I want to do this with you. I want to do that with you. I'm putting you over here. Yeah, and that will change the perspective of, first of all, and I don't blame the kids, but they're living in a cashless society. Right. So this feeling of transaction, that pain of paying, has totally been lost. Right. And so how else do we recreate that? And how else do we recreate this idea of I get to parse it out? And it doesn't have to be in a big lump of just one thing. Every dollar can have its own hope and dream. right? And so that kind of utilization, I guess, is what I try to create for people. And so for financial professionals as well, I mean, I can't tell you how many advisors and managers and, people that are dealing with the people that actually have the retirement savings and whatnot. They're like, oh, we've made a great plan. And I'm like, but have you had a conversation with them, like, about what their real fears are over Thanksgiving dinner? Right? Like, that's a different conversation than, oh, I've put you in, an S&P index fund, and we've got you in this, target-based funds, and we've got you in 2 annuities, and you've got your insurance, and look, you've got a great diversified portfolio. But like, why can't this person sleep at night? Because they maybe don't understand the fine print on one of those funds, or maybe they don't understand how their 3 children, who 2 of them live far away, 1 of them lives close, 1 of them is constantly the one driving them for groceries or the doctors, and they don't feel that they want to give the money equally. They do feel like they want to give more. And who do they have that conversation with? First of all, let's call that out. That's their prerogative, right? It's their money. They can do whatever they want with it. Siblings, we know. I have yet to have anyone in all the work I've done say, my family, someone passed and the money brought our family together. Every conversation I hear is siblings who grew up so close, everybody was happy, money gets involved, and now siblings, families destroyed. How does that happen?
For those who are listening to the show, AFCs and the larger personal financial community, what suggestions do you have for ways they can work to support and foster positive financial habits and mindsets with their clients?
Well, and you guys just do such a great job, right? In your training materials for the AFCs, just that counseling environment, the like not square table, right? Just make it inclusive, make it feel comfortable. And then I would say, don't make any, conversation off the table, but also don't think that the small stuff isn't valuable. Right? I find that sometimes just having a conversation about generic brand, peanut butter or jelly versus like, the regular brand can actually be a super powerful conversation. And people like to giggle at me because I love to bring things to like the uber basics. Of course, can do sophisticated finance till I'm blue in the face. How does that help anybody? Right? I need the lady who's walking down the supermarket aisle and she's working with a budget of $50 and she's trying to feed the 3 kids and she's thinking, do I buy generic because I could save $2 and then buy something else? Or do I buy the brand name because that's going to make my kids feel some certain way? And so those, I guess what I would say to the practitioners, the counselors that are out there, have the small conversations, the things that seem silly. There's so much value in those conversations. I mean, the book fair, right? All the things we've talked about today, we've all been in these situations. Whether you're high income, low income, you've walked down the peanut butter and jelly aisle. You were the kid at school at a book fair, right? Like all these experiences are happening in all of our lives. And that just, what did we see? What did we feel? What did we think while it was happening can be super, super valuable.
Cara, this has been so insightful, and we really appreciate all your insights here. At the end of each interview, we give our guests the opportunity to share their 2 cents. If you had one piece of advice to leave with our listeners, what would it be?
So I think I'm going to go back to, the same advice that I gave to the teens, because I see this a lot with retirees right now. So the advice would be, go to the bank, take a couple bucks out that you're comfortable with, not a couple like 4, but like maybe 500, maybe $1,000, bring it home in small bills and have a conversation with it. Touch it, put it in piles, maybe think about it that it's larger, but actually be interactive with the money. And you may find that there were hopes and dreams that you had that you've forgotten about. Or you may find that you have a goal that you haven't even started chasing yet, right? It's going to open up a different part of your mind. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but sometimes that in that uncomfortable state, we can uncover things about ourselves that we bury deep inside.
Cara, can you tell our listeners where they can connect with you?
Absolutely. You can always find me on LinkedIn, Cara Macksoud, or at the Money Habitudes website, moneyhabitudes.com, or by email, cara@moneyhabitudes.com.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Mary, it was so great having Cara on today. I love her enthusiasm and I love her career path. I think starting in Wall Street, having worked in the nonprofit sector, she's really been able to dig into some of the commonalities that people share as humans, and also just help financial professionals really understand those things better. And so really fun for her. One of the things that she said, and it was funny, she gave a Brene Brown quote, but it's funny how Brene Brown always kind of rings through. She said, if someone doesn't tell you the whole story, you create your own story. And I think that's so powerful for all of us working with people and talking about money. It's so easy, well, with that, or even in your own life, to draw lines that aren't there. And so I think the more we can listen, the more questions we can ask, the more we can be curious about people and the psychology behind the decisions, the better financial counselors, educators, planners we're going to be.
Absolutely. And I loved her intentionality. I mean, that really resonated with me, not just as a parent, but also as a financial services professional of, are you being intentional with your own money, right? Are you realizing and recognizing the value of each dollar and that it has purpose? So I love her conversation, not only from a Wall Street professional, but as a mother, right? And she's super relatable, but you can feel her passion of her wanting to take this to the next level and quite honestly, to the whole world. And I just feel that she has that excitement and that energy to really do the things that you're seeing of connecting people with their money and having them talk about money where it's not an awkward conversation, which is what I think all of our goals are in the long run, is to help people open up and talk more about it, to have healthy relationships with money along the way. With this, we hope to see you at this year's annual symposium. It'll be in Columbus, Ohio in November. Registration is open, so sign up now.